when the world is in crisis. And people are looking for hope and answers. Thai PBS World is there with you with the best minds of the day. Join us on Thai PBS World tonight, every weekdays at 7 p.m. Thai PBS World, we bring Thailand to the world. Thai PBS World tonight. I'm Nad Bunag.
And I'm Tep Chai Yong. We begin tonight with a piece of not so very good news for Thailand's biggest soccer tournament of the year, the Thai League. Because after so much expectation about the match resuming starting tomorrow, there was a piece of not bad news today. Because the bad news is that an Uzbekistani player belonging to Buriram United team has tested positive for COVID-19. And health authorities confirmed today that the footballer who previously played for the Uzbekistani national team arrived in Thailand on August the 13th and was subject to the 14-day quarantine, during which he tested negative. But another test on September the 8th, prior to the start of the new season, found him to be infected with the virus. So this is another reminder, Kun Donyana, that we still need to keep our guard up and cannot be too complacent. All right, so all eyes will be on the major student rally planned for September the 19th. And it looks like the decision by the management of Thammasat University yesterday to ban the event from the campus are not stopping the students. The student leaders today insist that they will go ahead with the rally right on the campus. Organizers of the rally planned for September the 19th insisted today that they will press ahead with the protest rally despite objection from the management of the Thammasat University. They threatened to campaign for an ouster of the university's rector, Kesini Vitunchat, if they are stopped from holding the rally on the campus. The university yesterday issued an order prohibiting the use of the campus in Bangkok for the rally. It claimed that the students have failed to comply with 3 conditions it had laid down earlier. The conditions require the rally to be held within the legal and constitutional framework, and that there must be a joint agreement on rally guidelines among the university, the students, and government authorities concerned. Advance permission is also needed if outsiders are to be involved in organizing the rally. The university did not say specifically in its order which of the conditions have not been met. However, it was reported that the university was concerned with the likelihood that the students would raise the issue of the monarchy during the rally. Panasaya Siddhi Jirawattanakul, a spokesperson of the Student Union of Thailand, declared today that the students are determined to defy the ban. She estimated that as many as 50,000 would turn up for the rally. Panasaya has been one of the prominent student activists behind a series of anti-government rallies. And in an act of defiance, Panasaya laid a wreath at the statue of Pridi Phnomyong, a former prime minister who played an important role in founding the university. Mourning for the loss of Thammasat's spirit, said a note attached to the wreath. Panasaya also flashed a 3-finger salute, which has become a symbol of defiance for anti-government protesters.
Meanwhile, members of Thai Phakdi, a self-proclaimed royalist group, has launched a campaign against the ongoing attempt to amend the constitution. The group unveiled itself last month to oppose student activists whom it accuses of engaging in anti-monarchy activities. Among demands made by the students is an amendment of the constitution and a house dissolution. The group leader, Warongdet Kitwikrom, who's a veteran politician, said a campaign has been launched to collect signatures from members of the public for a petition to oppose a constitutional amendment. Speaking at a press conference today, Warong said the group was able to collect as many as 70,000 signatures overnight since the campaign was launched yesterday. He said the signatures would be presented to both the Senate and the House of Representatives. The campaign is basically aimed at the government parties and the opposition bloc, which have submitted separate motions seeking to amend the constitution with the House Speaker Chuan Lee-pai. Chuan confirmed today that the motions will be up for debate during a House session on September 23rd and the 24th. Both motions propose the setting up of an assembly representing people from different walks of life to draft a new constitution. But the motions differ in details on the composition of the proposed assembly and contents of the charter to be drafted. The House Speaker said the Royalist Thai Pakdi group can directly convey their objection to the motions to him without having to have a signature campaign. He also said since the group is not proposing any legislation, no signatures from members of the public are required. So that's the latest on politics today.
And the months-long anti-government protests may not have a visible leadership. And so far, nobody has been identified as a clear leader of the series of protests that are posing the biggest political challenge to the Prayut government. But it certainly doesn't lack magnets who have become familiar faces at most of the rallies. And one of them is Parity Chivarak, a young fiery speaker who probably tops the watch list of the authorities. Better known by his nickname Penguin, the 22-year-old student has been one of the most outspoken critics of the establishment, especially the monarchy. He has been very adamant and consistent with his demand, which is a sweeping reform of one of Thailand's most respected institutions, and is a message that he never fails to highlight at all the rallies he attended. He has already been served with a series of arrest warrants for his role in some of the rallies, but instead of holding him back, the legal actions seem to have emboldened him. And this was how he reacted to his latest police summons. Parit was one of the 6 activists who reported to Khon Kaen police yesterday to hear charges arising from an anti-government rally in Mueang district of the province in July. The ever-defiant Parit set fire to his summons outside the police station, but nevertheless agreed to acknowledge the charges later on. Parit has been pushing the so-called 10-point demand that seeks to diminish the role of the monarchy. It includes defunding the royal family, an abrogation of the lese majesty law, and an end to glorification of the royal institution. In his own words, Parit described the demand as taking the students' fight to the next level with no turning back.
Penguin is a co-founder and former president of the Students' Union of Thailand, which has been a driving force behind the past rallies. The young activist first drew media attention at the tender age of 16. While studying at Bangkok's prestigious Triam Udom Siksa School, he unfurled a banner in front of Prayut in 2015 to demand action on corruption. A year later, he joined those who were against the constitution drafted at the behest of the military junta. Parit recalled that his political activism deepened after he joined the Faculty of Political Science at Thammasat University. And since then, he has been a staunch critic of the military, which he said has stolen the future of young people with its coup d'etat back in 2014. It's a certainty that Parit will again take center stage at the student rally planned for September 19th with his fiery presentation. And yesterday he offered a preview of what he was going to say. He said he will definitely again touch on his favorite topic, the monarchy. And Parit said he doesn't care whether or not the management of Thammasat University will allow its campus to be used for the planned rally. But he insisted that he and his student fellows will converge there on that day.
And the fears that the students would raise the issue of the monarchy certainly was the reason behind the decision by the management of the Thammasat University to issue the order yesterday banning the rally from the campus. No, but we can take comfort from the assurance given by the Prime Minister during the House debate yesterday that the government would not use violence or force against the students. So because he was talking in response to claims by opposition MPs that there were reports of authorities planning to crack down on the rally.
Because he actually said that these protesters, these young students are like his own children.
All right.
And moving on to COVID-19, the situation is getting worse in France because they have found new infections up to almost 10,000 in only one day. The health ministry said 9,843 new coronavirus infections have been recorded, which is the highest number since the start of the pandemic, and with 71 new clusters confirmed in France. Officials are concerned about the rising number of infections in France, although the death toll and admissions into intensive care units remain far below the heights recorded during France's lockdown back in March and April. Over the last week, around 48,500 new cases have been counted, out of over 1 million tests carried out, with the proportion of tests coming back positive rising to 5.4%. 19 people also died of the virus last week, bringing France's death toll from the pandemic to 30,800 deaths. French ministers and health experts will meet today, local time, to decide what measures are needed to contain the virus, with President Emmanuel Macron vowing they would give a clear idea to the public what can be expected over the next few weeks. Recently, the head of the Scientific Council advising the government on the pandemic, Jean-François Delfraissy, said the government needed to make some tough decisions. The government may also have to consider stricter measures on imposing lockdowns for infected people and those who they have been in touch with. So that's the latest on COVID-19 in France here.
Okay, so another reminder that
Yes.
things may get worse before they get better, right?
And we didn't even expect to see France seeing a big jump of infections in just one day here. And just so you know, these are the stories we've also been following. Thailand recorded 7 new COVID-19 infections today, including a 2-year-old baby girl who returned from Saudi Arabia. The new cases raised the total number of infections to 3,461, with 2 new recoveries and no new fatalities. Health investigators have been looking into how a Thai prisoner was infected with the G strain of COVID-19, the same strain which is now spreading worldwide. Director General of the Medical Science Department said the G strain is the one found among infected returnees from abroad in state quarantine. The U.S. Embassy in Thailand has denied allegations that it is funding or providing support to any of the protests in Thailand. The denial was in response to the recent dissemination by a blog site which spreads false information of photos of student activist Penguin meeting with former U.S. ambassador to Thailand as evidence of the alleged support for the student protests in Thailand. The central bank has launched a new platform using blockchain technology that aims to make the purchase of government savings bond easier, more efficient, and reduces overall cost. So far, 50 billion baht worth of bonds have been sold in a week through this platform. In the next phase, the infrastructure will expand to support different government bonds, both retail and wholesale, to fully serve the demand of all stakeholders. And talking about vaccine development, we've been talking about this for a couple of months now, and we've been seeing that many countries have been speeding up with the vaccine development here. But at this trade fair in China, the main highlight is the development of the vaccines as well as test kits and treatment doses for COVID-19. So let's take a look at this report.
Beijing has opened its first hybrid online and in-person trade show since the coronavirus pandemic began. A total of 95,000 visitors attended the 2020 China International Fair for Trade in Services. with 60,000 people allowed into its venues at any given time in keeping with social distancing rules. One of the visitors, Meng Xing, said before she arrived she was a little worried. After she arrived, she saw there were good service facilities and epidemic control measures. She was asked to wear masks and show her health code when entering. This place is quite safe for her. China National Biotech Group, or CNBG, a subsidiary of the state-owned pharma giant China National Pharmaceutical Group, or Sinopharm, is displaying test kits, treatment doses, and vaccines for COVID-19. Yang Huishuan, Vice President of CNBG, claims China's National Health Commission and National Medical Product Administration has cleared two inactivated COVID-19 vaccines developed by the company for emergency use for high-risk people, including nurses and doctors at the front line and epidemic prevention personnel. In August, CNBG published clinical data for the results from Phase 1 and Phase 2 trials. According to CNBG, the data suggests the vaccine is safe, tolerable, and capable of triggering the production of antibodies against coronavirus. The two inactivated vaccines are currently in their final trials on nearly 50,000 people in countries, including United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Peru, Morocco, and Argentina. China positioned itself to be a strong contender in the global race for a vaccine to end the pandemic. Among 7 vaccine candidates worldwide that have started final trials, 4 are developed by Chinese researchers. Sinovac, a private Chinese company that has experience developing vaccine for SARS-CoV, is also showcasing the inactivated vaccine called CoronaVac. Pearson Liu, the Director of Brand Management and Public Relations, explains Sinovac has started Phase 3 trials in Brazil and Indonesia and has received approval in Turkey and Bangladesh. The fair is being held as China's economy has largely restarted, despite the devastating blow to many industries from a months-long shutdown and the loss of domestic demand and foreign orders. About 100,000 participants registered to attend the trade show from 18,000 enterprises and institutions.
All right, as far as the coronavirus pandemic is concerned, we have to admit that we are still not yet out of the woods, no matter how optimistic we are trying to be. New cases of infections are still being reported worldwide on a daily basis. Businesses are still struggling and people are still losing jobs. But this doesn't stop us from looking to the future, right? And the future of the world of work, in which we know that the way that we live, the way that we work will be totally different from the way things are now. And of course, in a new world of work in which a new set of skills will be required. So tonight we'll be talking to an executive of a global recruitment consultancy that has conducted a survey of over 400 business organizations in the region to find out how these companies are coping with the impact from the pandemic and how are they going to cope with the future. I think the findings will be very useful for the future workforce and to be prepared for things ahead of them.
And right now we have Kun Punyanut Siri Sawatwatana, who's the country manager of Robert Walters Thailand. สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you for joining the program.
Thank you so much.
First, a disclaimer. Usually we don't have people from business organizations joining the program. We are public broadcasters, so we have to be careful about it. So that means that you may not be able to mention the name of your organization as often as you want to. I'm just joking. No, but first, let's start with some good news. We have been hearing too much bad news already. So let's start with something uplifting from the findings of the survey that your company has conducted.
Okay. I think if you're asking about the good news, I think the good news is when there's a COVID and people actually lock down, from the survey, they're saying that actually majority of the company don't look at the solution of firing people or lay off people. What they're trying to do is they're trying to see how they can actually make people safe in terms of safe from the virus and also safe from losing job as well. Yeah.
So you mean the majority of the companies
The
that you
major,
survey?
yeah, the majority.
So they try to
yes.
keep the workforce
Yes.
and try to
So
adapt
the-
to the changing circumstances.
Yes.
I see.
So the first thing that they're trying to do is they freeze headcount. So they don't hiring more people,
Okay.
but they try to keep the people that they have with them. The second option that they actually looking to do is they actually ask the current staff to do some voluntary leave to really actually somehow reduce a little bit of their costs and make sure that all the people can stay within the business.
So that's a good news. So what about the bad news?
The bad news. Maybe we all have a lot of bad news already, but some company still somehow need to reduce some of the workforce. That is,
Including those in
yeah,
Thailand, of course,
including
right?
those in Thailand, because we done the survey in Southeast Asia, so including Thailand. Yeah.
All right, so they are being forced by the circumstances to
Yes.
downsize their workforce.
Yes.
But of course, it doesn't mean that they completely get rid of the people they have. But
No. They I think like majority of the company they have empathy for sure. They're trying to keep as many people as they can, or they try to upskill them. They try to make sure that they keep everybody. But then with the current circumstance, with the business that not actually like going as it used to, some company may need to actually take the action, but it's not going to be the first action for sure.
How important is it to upskill the current workforce, especially during COVID-19 and now after the lockdown and post-pandemic as well?
I would say it's very important because like the world is changed. Because now people need to really using technology in the way that they never like used before, because some of them might not be able to actually using video conference or like comfortable with actually doing communication via telephone or via video. But now everybody needs to be able to do that in order to make it happen and make sure that the work is more efficiency, compared to before.
yeah. Now we understand that most or many of the companies that you have talked to have adopted this so-called working from home approach.
Yes,
To deal with the
yes.
situation. They have sort of downsized their staff and then make parts of their staff to work from home. And so how are these things, how do they work? I mean, do they produce a result that they desire to see?
I think 50% of people who answer the survey saying that like the productivity is actually the same. It's not like reducing productivity. So working from home somehow gives people more chance, more time. They reduce the traveling hours. Actually giving people ability to work whenever they need it. Some of them even working long hour than before. Like myself, because my company also adapting fully 100% working from home. So somehow I start working from like early than normal and finish later than normal.
I see.
Yeah.
So feeling at home working for your office.
Yes.
But what are the challenges of working from home then? Because some of the companies could not really adapt to remote working, and it seems like it's more applicable to those working only in tech companies or startup companies.
Not really actually, but the company need to really like somehow have that technology. First, they need to have the hardware. Second, they need to have the software. So they need to somehow prepare for this, because some company have actually policy to work from home, maybe one day a week already a year or 2 years before COVID happened. So if the company is ready or prepared before this happened, they can actually adopt it quite smoothly. Like for example at RoboWater, because we actually like having like all the surface, all the technology ready. When the COVID like start to spread, we actually take action very fast to make sure that people start working from home 100%.
I see.
And we start to see that many companies have adapted new technologies more than before. For example, with video conferencing, recruiting through video messaging apps, and all these new programs and all these things. From now on, how would these technologies be more prevalent in the future?
I think it's going to be very like, now people get used to those things already. So it's going to be something that will continue in the future for sure.
Would you say COVID-19 has boosted the companies to use more technology? Would you say that?
Yeah, I think like triple the speed. I think like with my experience, the first few months, the clients still reluctant to actually into candidate to video. They still want to meet people face to face. But then after a while, they think, okay, because they have a need to make sure that they have people right on time. So they decided to actually take a video into and make the decision over the video.
I see. So it looks like for many companies, according to your survey, have found out that working from home is the right approach in dealing with the specific circumstances. But long term, do you think many or most of the companies will continue to use that kind of work approach?
I think in the past, many companies want to somehow trying for their employee to working from home, but because there's no circumstance for them to actually make it happen, I think because they're afraid that productivity or efficiency will not be the same, right? But after like they was forced to try during COVID, and seemed like the activity is still the same. So a lot of clients that I've been talking to, and all of them, majority will be multinational company, they're actually thinking of implement the working from home, but might not be 100% because we still need to do meeting, still need to actually like doing brainstorm, but they might actually start to adopt one day per month or something like that. Yeah, that actually like every single company looking to somehow go to that trend.
So in sum, the practice of working from home has proven to be more positive than negative, right?
Yes.
For most companies that you have
For
talked to
most
anyway.
company, but it also depends on the personality of the person. Because in my organization, some of them saying that they love working from home. Some of them saying that they want to come to the office because they want to somehow socialize with their friend, colleague. Yeah. So somehow I think the company will need to have an option for people to choose whether they want to work from home or they want to actually working in the office.
In your survey, you focused on the technologies, remote working, and what will be the changes after the COVID-19. But there's one interesting point though. What would be the most important skills for the employees or even leaders to adapt?
I think after we've been facing this, I think flexibility is the first thing that I would say every single company looking to hiring people, and quickly adapt to change is another thing, because I think we don't know what's going to happen in the near future. Things can change quite easily and fast as well. So people need to be agile and also need to be like open-minded to change anytime.
So what would you say is the most important takeaway or most valuable findings that you learned from your surveys?
I think somehow we need to take action fast, because during those like COVID, things actually changing almost every day. So somehow as a leader, you need to really like look at the situation and need to realize that you need to make the decision or adapt with the situation fast enough to make sure that your business is still running, your people are still safe.
I see.
And other parts of your survey, you also looked at the leadership. Organizations also recognize that the new skills among leaders are also about having empathy, better understanding of technology and all these things. Is there anything else you found out through the survey on the new skills that the leaders of such organizations should adapt?
I think another thing that we found is that communication is a key, because during the time that we not be able to see each other, or even when we adopt the working from home approach in the future, leader need to be able to communicate via like video conferencing, make sure that you like employees like can hear you often enough, something like that, to make sure that the engagement is still there.
So it's not only for personnel to learn how to work from home, but for managers and those in management position to learn how to manage from the office, right?
Yes, from home.
From home and
but
from the
how,
office.
Yeah, and from the office, and how you can engage people over the video,
I see.
because it's more like it's something that never happened in the past.
I see. No, but as far as companies in Thailand are concerned, is there any big difference in the way they approach the issue, the way they adopted the working from home solution, different from those of their counterparts in other countries in the region?
I think from what we done some research and also talked to a lot of clients who working in Thailand and also in other countries, actually the method is the same. They actually somehow using learning from the country that got COVID first. Like for example in global water as well, we learn from China because we have office there. We learn what is the approach that they're doing, how they start working from home, what is the process to make sure it's still workable. So we learn from who actually got the experience first, and we actually pass our experience back to the country that somehow get the COVID lately, later than Thailand.
Any sort of differences that you've seen because you've focused on companies in Southeast Asia? Are there any findings that are slightly different? Like for Thailand might say one thing or Indonesia might say another with the way they work from home or adapt new skills?
Yeah, I would say people somehow actually quite comfortable working in the office before. So I mean the first few months I think everybody feel uncomfortable working from home. They don't know how to adjust themselves. The findings actually pretty much the same.
All right. Okay.
Do you see any sort of a new style of leadership at the management level that emerged from this pandemic crisis? The way that they handle the personnel, the way they handle the day-to-day operation under these circumstances. A new style of leadership that we may not have seen before under normal circumstances.
I would say not really, but I think the one that shining or actually make the company survive during this time, they need to really look at the situation and adapt very fast. They need to they cannot actually rely on what worked in the past. They need to really ready to change. Yeah.
But in Asian culture, leaders in many companies are always at the top, and people often see them as unapproachable to many of the employees. And if we want these leaders or bosses to improve their communication, just like in your survey, what would be the best way to do it in your perspective?
I think it's even more difficult to approach them this day because of the social distancing.
Wow.
No, just joking.
I think what I saw from the company that we're working with, I think the CEO actually hosting the conference every week to make sure that maybe a coffee session, we call it coffee or tea session, but then you prepare your own tea and snack, but we're grouping together, and the CEO will actually somehow communicate to the employee whether what is the situation of the company right now, and try to encourage the employee and try to actually create motivation of the employee during that period.
Now you are in the recruitment business, right? So how does the whole thing affect your operation, and how that this will shape the way that you run this recruitment business in the future?
Of course, I think we actually have a high impact from this situation because we're working with a lot of corporation where because they got impacted by the COVID also. Like I mentioned, because the first thing that they do is they start freezing hiring. So, but still, if they have a critical position, they still need a person, a quality or a talented person to run during this crisis. What we see or what we think that is going to be a future of Recruit, we actually during this time we introduced to the client the Spark High. So it's a video interview. So instead of in the past, you need to submit the resume or you need to actually interview the candidate face to face. We ask our candidate to record the video, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, instead of actually paper. So the line manager or the client can see the personality, can see the attitude, can also understand the like snapshot of the candidate within only like 2 or 3 minutes. And it's worked very well in RoboVoter in other countries. For example, in New Zealand, in Australia. Yeah.
But you think that job applicants or people that you are going to hire or into interview, do they act differently or speak differently between interviews, in-person interviews or through video clips?
I think in the first few times that they record their video, they'll feel uncomfortable or like not really like get used to. But I think after a while, if this is a trend in the future, people will try to adapt themselves, and eventually it's going to be more like a trend for sure.
Will the recruitment guidelines change at all, whether the applicants expect, for example, like if they're looking for this skill, there might be more skills coming up as well? Is there a possibility that it will change?
I would say like the skill that needed will be similar, but then the mindset of the candidate that organization they will want somebody who be open-minded and really prepare for change. Because some people, they've been working in the same way for 10 years and they're looking to work like that. It's not going to be easy in this period of time to be able to do that.
No, your findings from the surveys certainly are useful not only for business leaders or managers, but should also be useful for members of the future workforce as well, right? People looking for a job after the COVID-19 is over. So what would be your suggestion to these future job seekers?
I think you need to adapt yourself and try to learn new things every day, because nowadays there's a lot of like, the good thing about this is we have a lot of seminar, webinar or online courses that we can actually attend for free. So you need to be able to adapt yourself with technology, because right now you cannot say that you cannot do it. You need to be able to do it to survive during this period.
What about your advice to leaders or CEOs or even immediate supervisors when accepting new people into the team?
I think they need to looking for not only the technical skill. I think they need to really finding people who want to go with the company for future as well. They need to have the ability to adapt or change or learn. The agility to learn new things need to be the key thing for now, like for all the employee right now.
Are any of the companies that you talk to in the media business?
In the media business,
I'm just curious to find out how they adapt.
I think we working with a lot of like industry. I think media, maybe like more like a PR agency or something like that. They're also working from home. They're also working from home 100%. So all the back office, for example, is like easily can actually adapt to working from home. The front still need to come to the office to actually doing some activities.
And how would business in the recruitment consultancy like yourself will adapt?
Right? Yeah. I think like the first thing that we adapt is we need to make sure that we understand our client and also actually advise like what type of skill or what type of the soft skill that they should looking for. And we also come up with, like I mentioned, the Spark High is something that like in Thailand we are the first to introduce this to client, and a lot of clients like surprised and also happy to hear, because it's something that they never heard before and it can also save time.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit about what you just said?
The video interview, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the past, when people want to apply for the job, they're sending the resume. What we offer is we actually have another application called Spark High that we ask the candidate to record the video to introduce themselves. We might actually ask them to answer a short, like 2 or 4 questions, so that the client can have a look at their profile and in the same time video, so that they can actually like reduce the process of the interview.
And you don't have a face-to-face talk to these people anymore, right?
The first time will be that video, and if the clients think that okay, this one is suitable in terms of the culture, in terms of the character, they will actually invite the candidate through like video conference or either like face to face, because now we can meet each other already, so face to face can happen. But in case if something happen in the future,
It's very interesting because this is exactly where the new skills will be needed.
Yeah,
That
the
you-
presentation
yeah,
skills.
the lighting.
so instead of like TikTok or
camera
Right.
angles and how to act in front of a camera.
yeah, and
right?
how you can actually answer professionally.
Okay.
And normally we normally ask candidate to record it in English. Yeah.
So English will be something important as well, not just a new language, but it's a standard language that everyone needs to know at the moment. Any other findings that you found out in this survey that you would like to share with us?
I think one thing though, like because when we asking people, what do you think is actually affect your work to increase productivity or make it worse? So the thing that people answer is the same. So some of the people saying that like they like working from home because they have more focus, and another 50% saying that they don't like working from home because they cannot focus. So it's actually depend on the person whether they're independent enough and they have responsibility enough to make sure that they manage their own time.
It also depends on what kind of homes you have too.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you have a family, that would be a big challenge. Like you have to like take care of your kids and work at the same time. Anything that shows that as well? Does it
Yes.
show any of the challenges that?
There's a lot of challenges because in RoboWater we also actually like come up with a group of like a mommy who need to work from home and also have kids running,
Okay.
and we share like those like tips and tricks, and we want to make sure that okay, you don't need to be concerned too much if your kids like show up like, during your meeting or whatever because people understand.
And what about yourself? Were you happy working from home too?
I think I like it, but in the same time because I'm a social person, so I also want to meeting my team and also meeting people as well.
Okay.
So I think like half should be good,
All right.
but not 100%.
So from now on, what is your prospect of these companies who will still adapt working from home practices, allowing the flexibility for employees to work outside of the office and not having to see face to face in the office anymore?
I think many companies right now actually like still having the working from home policy running until December. There's a lot of companies that still not fully come back to the office 100% because they think that they can manage that way.
All right, so very good. Thank you very much for your perspectives, and you certainly help us widen our the way we look at things in the future as far as the new world of work is concerned.
Great.
Thank you so
much.
much. Yeah, thank you for you too.
I will be leaving you tonight with images of a deep orange sky in San Francisco, which came from a thick fog of smoke, which has been caused by the wildfires in California. And that's all for Thai PBS World tonight, and we'll see you on Monday.